Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Baruch Hashem, we're ready for class number 3 on basic of Judaism. Baruch Hashem, keep it kosher. That's something that I really like because it bothers me every day, the fact that I need to eat kosher. I'm kidding, I like it. The thing is that it's very, very important, obviously for Jewish people, but for everyone. The idea that you check what you eat, there is some process to get your food, even in your house, in your kitchen. We have a chef over here, can tell you that it's part of the process of everything, and it's very, very important as you learn about Judaism. And even if you're already keeping kosher or you're about to keep kosher, it's important to understand what exactly is kosher, why we need to keep it, what's the idea behind, how to do it. There's lots of details into doing that, very, very important. And that's Be'ezrat Hashem what we're going to talk tonight. So first thing is, what exactly it means kosher and why we need it. Many people get confused with the concept that it's very healthy for us. If you eat kosher, you're gonna feel good, you'll be strong. They told me that for many, many years, and I have to tell you that if you're looking around, go to yeshiva in Bnei Brak, look at the boys who are eating kosher all their life, they look very weak. And then go to Equinox in Brickell, see the bodybuilders eat every day non-kosher, right? And they very developed, right? I mean, I didn't check their masters, but maybe Troy can testify, right? So definitely has nothing to do with, oh, you eat kosher, you'll be healthy, you'll be strong, and oh, you're eating non-kosher is not gonna happen. Even though the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the Maimonides actually bring that as the reason that God told us to eat kosher, because the kosher animals will be good for us, right? Very, very important. So that's one opinion. In reality, it doesn't really work. It's not. You see that many people who eat kosher, they're either overweight or they're weak. They're not necessarily strong. You know how many Shabbatot I'm eating cholent, aka hamin, trying to develop muscles. Doesn't work. Believe me. I even feel it till Wednesday. So that's not the solution, right, to be healthy. So why we eat kosher? Why God is telling us to eat kosher? It's so important. Many times in the Torah we mention it, Parashat Shemini, and many, many more times we actually go into the details of what kind of animals you can eat, how you need to kill those animals, how to prepare them, cook them, what kind of utensils and the kitchen, and who are the one who's doing it for you, and how you mixing it. Because even if you have kosher meat and kosher milk and a kosher chef, Jewish, who's doing it with kosher kitchen, everything is amazing. But as soon as you combine the cheese and the meat together, and you're about to give a bite to the cheeseburger, can't. But everything is kosher, right? So it seems like there is more into of just not healthy, right? There's another understanding to it, as the Abarbanel bring, and the Ramban actually bring it also, that maybe it's not physically not good for you, but it's concept of spiritualism. It means the spiritual aspect of your life doesn't, it's not good if you eat those things. But before we even going to the details of understanding what exactly it means kosher, right? Because there's lots of levels into kosher food. First, the rabbis are telling us that the reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us to eat kosher is because everything that we're putting into our body, into our mouth, is direct influence and impact to everything that we do. It means that we and everything around us, the surrounding environment, the physical reality, it's not the separate things. They're not a separate entity. It's actually combined together. Everything you eat becomes part of you. And it's very important to understand that it's not just, oh, I need to eat, I will give a bite to something that I like. It's very, very important to understand that that's going to change you. The rabbis are telling us that some of the animals, they have behavior that is not good for us. And that specific behavior, if you will eat it, you become like that, right? That's why the Torah giving us a specific rules of what kind of animals you can eat and even how to eat it. For example, the shchita. Why we need to, if we have kosher animals, right, that we need to do the process of slaughtering the animal. So there is a specific way of doing that with a very sharp knife and a specific place to do it and how you're doing that. Lots of details. That's why the meat is so expensive, the kosher meat. Because There is a process to do it. Why? So many people says because this is not gonna be tsar ba'alei chaim, to make the animals suffer. But I think that if you shoot a bullet between the eyes of the animals, that will kill them on the spot. They're not gonna suffer. I don't think it's a faster or easier the process of slaughtering the animal than any other way of killing them. Normal ways, obviously. So that's not the reason, even though it's a nice thing that we're saying. But in reality, it's not. In reality, I'm sure there is a very productive ways of killing animals without causing them to suffer, right? Not necessarily. The Torah doesn't specify the reason why we're doing that, why we need to cut with knife. But the rabbis, especially in Kabbalah, explain that there is another prohibition known as lo tochlu al adam. We're not allowed to eat blood, right? That's why we're salting the meat before. There is a process called melicha. When you take the kosher piece of meat, even though everything was kosher, you still need to salt it before you eating to take the blood out. Why? So the Torah explained that Adam wa nefesh, the blood, is the life of the animal. And if you'll eat it, in a way, you'll become a little bit like that animal. And maybe that's what's the difference between people who are eating kosher and non-kosher. It's not about becoming strong physically. It's becoming strong spirituality, becoming strong with your neshama. It means to understand that when you take something that you're not supposed to eat, that kind of behavior, that kind of animal's instinct become part of you. And then you see people, they're jealous, they have physical desires, they're behaving like animals, and their cycle of life is eating, sleeping, having some kind of physical relationship, and that's it. Why? Because when you eat animals, you become like animals. That's just one understanding. There's a little bit different than that, the idea. I don't know if any of you is vegetarian, but the first human, he was actually vegetarian. I don't know if you remember, it was many, many years ago, but the Torah is telling us that when he was created, what God told them is, Mikol et sagan achol tochel. From all the trees that you see around you, and there was lots of trees over there you can eat, right? There was only one tree that he was not supposed to eat from that specific tree, the tree of knowledge. Obviously, as a nice Jewish man, that was the only tree that he ate from right away. He didn't even wait for 2 days, right? Boom, he jumped and he ate it. Baruch Hashem, that's why we're here today. So he was not allowed to eat animals, any kinds of animals, right? Domestic animals, wild animals, birds, nothing. And only later on something changed and he was allowed to eat, not just allowed, he needed to eat animals. You know what changed? The thing is that, as I explained at the beginning, we have direct correlation or relationship or a connection between us and everything around us. As we already learned the first class, that Bishvili Nivra Olam, the whole world was created for us. Each one of us, the world was created for you. And everything you see, it's only in your reality. So all the animals and everything, the buildings, the trees, it's for you, right? When I see you guys, it's for myself, not from a place of being arrogant, from place of being full of myself, lots of gava, the opposite. From place of responsibility, from place of understanding that, you know, if everything is for me, I need to take care of it, right? I'm obligated. It's a must. So when the first human, he lowered himself. He was in a very high level, and unfortunately, he lowered himself because he ate from a tree that he was not supposed to eat, and he did something that he was not supposed to do. We're not going into what exactly happened over there and what kind of tree was the tree of knowledge, maybe for another time. But whatever he did was something that he was not supposed to do. When he lowered himself, he wasn't the only one that went down. Everything around him also went down. So when he right now needs to elevate himself, what do he need to do? He needs to elevate his surrounding environment. So when he lowered the animals, he needs to elevate the animals. During the flood generation, remember Noah when he was going into the ark? So that generation, people, unfortunately, they sinned so much that they caused damage even to the animals and to the trees. It means they sinned so much that not just between them, they brought so much impurity that even the animals, they start to go with each other. The horse with the donkey, and the elephant with the giraffe. How exactly they did it, I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was many, many years ago. But the concept is that when the people, they brought impurity to themselves, they created this level of impurity to everyone around them. That's the problem. So when we do teshuvah, when we grow, when we elevate ourselves, it's our responsibility to make sure that we are not the only people who are doing that, but everyone around us will do it, even the animals. So how we can do it? By eating the animals. How come? You're going to tell me it doesn't make any sense. Eating the animals will elevate? The answer is yes. When you pick specific animals and you have the right process and order to do it, and each step of that process, you remind yourself that there is a way and rules and structure, and then you say the blessing, the bracha that we're going to learn, B'ezrat Hashem, what exactly it means. So you taking the animal and you elevate that animal to the level of human, it's become part of you, right? And that's the difference. If you know what you're doing, if you eat the proper food and you say the beautiful bracha, the blessing before and after, you elevate the animals to your level, to level of human. But if you don't do it, it's the opposite. You lower yourself to the level of the animals, and you can, go outside to the street and you will see people who are behaving like animals in business, in relationship, with friends. Why? In Hebrew we call them chayot. They are chayot. Why they are chayot? Because they're becoming like chayot, they're behaving like chayot. They don't think how they need to act. They just act without thinking. By eating kosher, you take yourself and everyone around you, including the animals, to the next level. And it's very, very important. So number one, when you eat the kosher food, according to some opinions, you're preventing yourself from eating animals with bad behavior. That's number one. Number two, you elevate domestic animals that live with you, and you make sure that when you want to go to the next level, when you want to improve yourself, to elevate yourself, you make sure that everyone around you, including all of the domestic animals around you, also going to the next level. There is a little bit even more into it. There is something with your neshama. We have our soul, right? Now, that's something that we cannot see. Can you see your soul? You cannot see it. But still, we have it. It's like the connection between the candle and the flame. Can you see where actually it's connected, the flame and the candle? You can't. You see a candle made of wax. You see the wicks. And then on top of it, you see flame jumping. You can't really see a connection, but you know it's there, right? And as soon as you stop the connection, the flame will be gone, right? We are the candle. The flame is our soul, and we have this connection even though we cannot see it, but it's there. And everything that you do, including everything that you eat, have a direct impact of your soul. That's why it's so important to eat kosher, but it's even more than that. When you keep Shabbat, how many days during the week you keep Shabbat? One day. On Friday you get ready. You can even get ready during the week, like we learned last class, right? But there's only one day that you keep Shabbat. But when you eat kosher, it's every day. Every day. I remember I had a conversation with Troy. You remember? He told me that when you started to keep kosher, the change in your life, the influence of what you're doing was much higher than keeping Shabbat or praying. Why? Because everything you do, you go to the store, you're checking, are you okay, star K, triangle, so many symbols, all right. Then you're going to a friend, question, kosher, not kosher. You're going out with your friends, drinking beer, wait a minute. What kind of cocktail you take? No, this is with wine, I'm not allowed. Tequila, tequila mia, wait a minute. Añejo, I'm not sure. Rabbi, can I drink it? Only, clase azul reposado, good to go, right? The Costco one, it's kosher, but not so bueno, right? So everything you do, it involves kosher. You go to the store, you're buying grocery, you're going to your house, finally, after the day is over, right? You want to cook, wait a minute. This is milchik, fleischik, meat. I'm not sure how I use it. It's part of, I need to kosherize it. Rabbi, right? You live your life. It's something about kosher that beside of influence everything around you and understanding that there is, direct impact on your neshama, it's putting you in structure. It's putting you in a place that you're always raising awareness of everything that you're doing, everything that you're eating, everything that you're drinking. That's amazing. Why? Because you're not just following your physical desires. You're always in control. We as Jewish people, we need to be in control because we are light to the nations. And we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. You can't just wake up in the morning, and I know there is very romantic to bring breakfast to your wife or fiance or your girlfriend to your bed. You heard about this concept many, when I was, for gentlemen. I don't know if this exists today. I don't know. It exists. So many people is like, they like to do it. And it's very nice. But imagine how you think, wait a minute, what I'm doing, what I'm bringing, right? Should you say bracha before? Wash your hands in the morning. There is so many details that even in the, the places of love and emotions, you're still in control. That's the beauty about what we're doing. That we can do everything. But your mind, your brain is working. You have structure, you have the laws, you have the rules, you have the techniques, the process, the understanding. So that's something that I like about kosher, besides of what we discussed before, that it's taking you from, I'm keeping Shabbat here and there, I'm going to shul on Yom Kippur. It's not like every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, every day, when you keep kosher, like you're part of it. Everywhere you go, you're aware. You go to publics, you check. And then there's always, obviously different, Chalav Israel, Yasham, Pas Israel, right? I'm sure you heard different things, It's important. I can tell you that, for example, today, as I mentioned before in shul, that I went fishing with my kids for hours. It was very nice. The whole trip is it's kosher, it's not. There is the fins, there is the scales, it's easy. Can you check? Oh, it's red snapper. It's the kids, my daughter, 5 years old, is like, Abba, it's kosher, it's not kosher. We're allowed to eat it? We're not allowed. Right? Now, the guy that is working for 27 years, and also was the captain that he was actually coming from Hawaii, is maybe 65 years old. Since he remembers himself, he's fishing. He actually won even a competition. I didn't know there is a competition of fishing. I was like, wow. But anyway, he won something in Hawaii. So I realized that half of the trip I'm talking with the captain and the guy who's working there about the fish, and this is kosher and this is not. And you live your life. It's not like, Shabbat or holidays, because it's only on the holidays, it's only on Shabbat. Here, even when you go to a fishing trip with your kids, you're going to talk about it. That's why kosher is so important, because it's changing your life. It changes the way you think, change the way you act. It's part of you. Very important. Another thing that kosher is very important, because there's many things that are actually kosher. For example, wine. If you have kosher wine, or meat, kosher meat, there is still a possibility that you're not allowed to eat or drink it. When? If a non-Jew cook the meat for you. It's called bishul akum. And you're not allowed to eat it. But why? It's kosher. Everything is kosher. What can be the problem? Wine. If someone, a Gentile, that especially someone who's worshipping idols, pour wine for you, and the wine is kosher, and the glass is kosher, right? And it's in your house, right? But now, because he put that wine, you cannot drink it. Why? Why? If it's kosher, it's okay. It seems like, obviously, it's not coming from place of being racist, or from place of we don't like other people, chas v'chalila. So what's the problem with that? The thing is that the Torah explained us that some of the concept of kosher, it's to prevent intermarriage. So you think about kosher as something that it's regarding your diet, but then the Torah is telling you, you know what? If you're always gonna eat kosher, where are you gonna find it? Where other Jewish people are going to find their kosher food, right? And if you can eat and drink meat and wine with Jewish, what's gonna happen? Probably you'll marry Jewish husband or wife. So the thing is about eating kosher, that is not just diet, it's actually something that's going to help you to keep your life with Jewish life, right? So that's a small detail that it's very important also to understand, that it's not just about having structure in life. Actually, the Torah is telling us that by making sure we're eating kosher food and drinking kosher drinks or wine, it's not just about what you drink or eat, it's even about who is with you. Because the Torah is telling you it's not just about the food, it's about the environment. The first thing that the Rambam is telling us is choose your country, choose your place to live, choose your friends, right? Because you get influenced by the friends around you. That's why it's so important to eat kosher. So just to grab it up, the idea, the deeper meaning of kosher, we discussed the first topic of today, is first, number one, according to some opinions, there is a physical change in your body that even though it seems like we don't see it, because people who eat kosher, they can be very weak, and people who eat non-kosher, they can be very strong. So I'm not really sure 100% what the Rambam means when he say that actually there's the physical, differences of eating kosher or not kosher. Then there is the opinion, there is the spiritual aspect of your life, it's different. We explained that can be the behavior. When you eat something that is not kosher, it can change the way that you feel, your desires, the way that you act, the way that you have relationship, the way that you think. And there is another aspect of influence of our soul, of our neshama, even though you cannot see it. We discussed about having structure in life and understanding, like every day you know exactly what you're doing. From the first meal, the breakfast, you already think what to do, how to do, right? And then we also discussed about the way that it's actually keeping us together. Unity and a community and a family. Because if the only, places to go to eat is where other Jewish people will go, and you can eat in a way that's keeping you secure and that's protecting the Jewish family, that it's very, very important. For sure, when we're talking about basics of Judaism. And that's something that's relevant to our life. So we understand that kosher is not just about, what you eat or not, right? It's a little bit more than that, something that actually changed your life, especially for those who wants to change. They're not eating kosher, they want to change. That's something that you're going to feel, and you actually can see a process. Sometimes we discuss about gym. So you go to the gym and you walk 2-3 miles, you don't see a change at all, right? I mean, you still need to keep doing that to see a little bit growth. Sometimes when we're doing a change in our life, we don't see the differences. We try to keep Shabbat, we try to pray here and there, but we feel like same thing. With kosher, you can see the change in the first day, because it's literally changed your life. It's like a new diet, but actually you think everything, how to, what to, where to, it's like everything changed. So you can actually feel, and it's helped a lot for people that are actually in the process to pick that up, because it's every day. It's every day. Also, it's going to help you to, in a way, separate you from maybe friends that are not good for you. Unfortunately, sometimes we're going out with people that are not necessarily good influence. And it's important to choose the right friends, right? Tell me who your friends are. We tell you who you are. Especially when you're trying to take a path that it's, going to the spiritual way of your life. And you're going higher and higher. Some people, they try to take you down. It's like, no, you're crazy, what you doing? Come with us. When you keep Shabbat, you can still go on Sunday. When you pray Shacharit, you can still go with them at night, right? But when you eat kosher, now it's like, sorry, I cannot go with you to this restaurant. Sorry, I don't drink those things, right? It's a little bit, give you a protection not to be influenced by things or people that are not good for you. So that's also something that it's really relevant to our life. We're talking about why kosher is relevant. Not just that it's going to change you, what you eat can change everything around you. Your friends, your society, what you're doing, right? It's really make a difference in your life. So that's why it's so important, right? So we're talking about it, and then the main question is, wait a minute, so what is kosher? I mean, we know that kosher meat, what exactly, right? Because there is lots of things that are kosher, just for you to understand. So the main, obviously, thing is some of the, if we're talking about animals, right? Let's start with animals. Some of the animals are kosher, some of them are not kosher. You know what's the difference between kosher animals? Let's say we're talking about land animals, not birds, not fish. Let's talk about land animals, right? Domestic animals. What can be the difference that make it kosher or non-kosher? The Torah is giving us actually two signs, right? What? Right, so in Hebrew it's called Ma'ale Gera and Mafris Parsa. Ma'ale Gera is chewing cud. You know that kosher animals, they're always chewing. By the way, it's very similar to Jewish people. We're always eating. Pachaharit, Brit Milah. You know how many events every day I have? Bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, wedding, sheva brachot, Shabbat. You have to eat pat shacharit. You have to say beracha. You have to do this. You have to do that, right? So that's why it's happened to us because we're eating the chewing animals. So that's what happened. I'm telling you, it's a direct result. That's it, right? So now, this is one of the signs, chewing cud, right? Now the thing is that it's interesting, but there is mitzvah, nothing to do in, separate topic, but just for you to know. Lo tacharosh shor v'chamor. You're not allowed to plow the land. Back then they used to use animals. To have a donkey and an ox together. Why? Because the kosher animals, that this is the ox, right? The bull is chewing. And the donkey is not. So now the donkey is looking at him and it seems like he's eating. He doesn't know that he's chewing the same meal from 2 hours ago, right? It's like, I realize that when I get my kids like a piece of meat and they don't want it and they're chewing the same for 2 hours, still it's like, okay, you don't have to. So now this animal is like chewing the same food. They have a system of like 4 different like gastronomic system or the stomach. I don't know if you learned that. But anyway, so it's like literally like 4 times back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, chewing again, the whole process, So you look at it and it seems like they're eating right now. So the donkey is a donkey, right? He doesn't know that they're eating from 2 hours ago. So he's very jealous. And he's like, why this guy is eating over here? I'm not eating, I'm just working, right? So he doesn't know, he's hamor, he's a donkey, but still. So we're not allowed to put them together. Why? Because we don't want to cause animals to suffer, right? That's the reason. Again, it's nothing to do with our topic, but just for you to see how it's relevant. So anyway, so the 2 things is chewing cud, and the second thing is mafris parsa. What is mafris parsa? Right? When it completely splitting the roof, right? It's literally, you can see on their feet, like it's completely separate, and that's one of the things. Again, this is the signs from the Torah to find out what it's kosher one. Some of the animals, they have only one sign and therefore they're not kosher, like chazir, right? It's big that we're not allowed to eat, but actually have one of the signs, right? It's not chewing, but they have the other sign that actually, that's why we're using that in Judaism, even though there is lots of, non-kosher animals, but usually the chazir, the piggies, represent the non-kosher food. That's basically something that even people who eat non-kosher, right? But they will say like, I'm not eating bacon. I don't eat those things, even though they eat non-kosher. But this is like something red line, especially in Israel. You can find lots of Israeli non-religious. They don't keep kosher, but chazir, like wow, that's not. Why? Because that symbolizes something that it's showing like it's kosher. You see it, but it's not. And we're trying to prevent ourselves, and this is like analogy to our behavior. Many times people, they showing like they're good, right? From the outside, everything is amazing, but inside they're not. You can find it in dating and in business, that you see people, they seem very nice, very 100% amazing, but then inside they're not, and you find it later when you actually date more, you do business with. And this is chazir. Chazir is someone that looks kosher, but when you look, you see that it's not chewing, right? But it's trying to tell you I'm kosher. So we use the chazir as analogy, as something that represents to something that we don't like, non-kosher. Because in Judaism, we know that everything is a met, everything has to be the truth. Whatever you say, that's how you need to feel. Don't fake it, right? We okay with people that are our enemies. We know this is guy, is our enemy, it's okay. But those that are fake, they're hypocrites, they're like trying to show like they're your friend, or they're not, they're the worst. This is chazir, right? And we're using that nickname for specific people sometimes. We call them, huh?
Is chazir with an R at the end or an L?
R. We call them chazir because according to some opinions, we're going to eat the chazir when Mashiach will come. She'atid lachzor, right? Chazir is returning, right? Coming back. So I believe that if we're using the same analogy, that Be'ezrat Hashem, when Mashiach will come, everyone will do teshuvah, and even those people that are fake and they're lying to you, Be'ezrat Hashem, they will change and will be good, right? So therefore the chazir will be kosher if you're using the same analogy. But anyway, so we have different kinds of animals. Some of them are kosher, some of them are not, right? So let's for a moment stick to the land animals. We're gonna talk also about birds or different kinds of chicken, and then some fish and other things. Let's say you already went and you took a goat, right? Goat, it's kosher animal. It's not enough, right? The way to kill that animal, there is also a kosher way. How you can kill kosher animals? What's the only way to do it? Shchita, slaughtering, right? I don't know if you ever seen. I actually learned shchita. I'm an official shochet. Be aware. Yes, I'm dealing with very sharp knife. So I don't do it for living. Obviously, I'm doing it for killing, not for living. But when you take the goat, let's say, there is a way to do it, and there is actually, it says there is 5 specific things you have to check. It's called halada, but we're not gonna go into those details. But it's very important. The knife needs to be sharp, very sharp, right? You need to make sure exactly where you're doing it. You do back and forth. You have to make sure that you cut, there is the veins, right, on the animals, and you have to make sure that you cut the majority of the vein. There's specific ways of doing that. So now you're taking the goat, you make sure it's a kosher animal, right? We good? Check, number 1. Remember, kosher animal, check. Now, kosher way of killing the animal, shchita, slaughtering. That again, that's involved lots of details. With the place of the shchita, you cannot do it too much higher or lower. There is a specific place in the neck, right? You have to do it. And then there is the way how you move it. The knife, you have to move it slightly back and forth. You cannot do it in one shot, like to chop it. You're not allowed, and also you're not allowed to break a bone, because then you're gonna have a problem with the knife. Have to be very sharp knife, and you can't stop. If you start and you stop even for a moment, not kosher. You have to continue till you completely stop. Yes.
Isn't that waste animal?
To waste.
If you like disqualify it. Yeah, you killed it for nothing.
You sell it for non-Jewish people. Don't worry about the business part of it. So fine. Yeah. There's always people gonna eat it. But anyway, so that's the shchita part. Now let's say shchita, check. So we have the kosher animal, right? We have a goat for the hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like Bahomer. We're taking it, we have it. By the way, we did actually shchita here on the bay. And the group of those from the Torah was beautiful. Right over here, literally 2 blocks from here, on the bay, we did shchita. We took a goat and everything, and it was on the pergola. So we tied the goat on the pergola, and we did it. And then we didn't realize that people actually on the bay with boats coming, right? Oh, I'm telling you, there was 20 people, tourists. I don't know from where. They're looking at us, bunch of black and white primitive people, right? With a big knife, a goat hanging from the pergola on the backyard of this house, and everyone is like, Baruch Atah Hashem, ready to do the shchita, and it's like, don't do it, right? It was crazy. There are a few guys on the jet ski came to see. Anyway, bottom line, everyone enjoyed on the barbecue after, later on. But the concept is that when you do it, again, there's a way to do it. Again, in the Torah, you can find people that are actually vegetarians. I mentioned even Adam HaRishon. We're not pro-eating, but if you eat it, it's important to know how you make it kosher. So, animal check, shchita check. Now there is something else you need to check. Trefa. What is trefa? You shachted the animal, you slaughter it, you open it. You need to make sure that this animal was actually good enough to survive. So if, let's say, in the lungs there is a hole or there is something, there is a problem, it's make this animal taref. It means that even though it's a kosher animal, and even though you did the proper shchita, right, it's still not kosher to eat it. That's why it's very important to open the animal and to check. Here comes the difference that you heard about Bet Yosef, meat Bet Yosef, or glad kosher. There is kosher and there is glad kosher. It means that there is different levels of checking the animal, right? Some of them are more strict than others. Some of them hold that if you find, A, B, C, it's not good. Some of them hold that it's okay. That's why there is different levels in kosher meat. So even though it's a kosher meat, even though you did proper shchita, still not necessarily the meat will be kosher according to some opinions, or if you find out that it's taref. So again, remember there is two words that you need to know: nevela and trefa. Nevela in Hebrew, it means dead animal that didn't went through the proper process of shchita. We call it nevela. It means it's a dead animal, but without the proper slaughtering the animal. That's called nevela, right? There is trefa. It means trefa. It's a kosher animal with the proper shchita, but then you find out that something is not kosher, right? Let's say you find a nail in the brain of the animal. So it's still alive, right? Or not anymore after you did the shchita, but that's considered an animal that at some point will die, not just because the slaughtering part that you did. It's called trefa. Very important.
But do we care what the animal eats?
We do. We do, of course.
Right? Because
That's why the meat is more expensive from Japan, because they eat.
I'm saying, okay, making it kosher.
Yeah, only sushi. That's why it's more. No, I'm kidding, but the meat is much.
No, I'm gonna go. Like, eat
We don't care what they eat, but it's important for us to make sure they're eating something good, so not gonna make them trefa. That's why when you bring the meat from Uruguay, from Argentina, they have endless place, right, to eat grass. It's much, actually in America it's good, but some of the places, they don't really have much area, so they're going to places that are not good for them. They can eat pieces of metal or plastic, and that's ruining their gastronomic system, and that's make them trefa. That's why it's important to find, but it doesn't really make a difference. If it's kosher, it's kosher. So now, kosher animal, check. Kosher shchita, check. Taref, check. Everything is good. Now you have piece of meat. What's now? Now you need to do melicha. You need to salt it, right? It's actually interesting, but there is a kosher meat in Canada, Amsalem. I don't know if you heard of him. It's a kosher meat in Canada. The guy who's doing it, his name is Amsalem. And he wrote it as a patent, the concept of shchita and melicha. It's actually in Canada, it's approved by the government. There is a way of making meat, so other people is not allowed to do it. Obviously, everyone is eating kosher doing it, but he wrote it as a patent, like something that is like special that he's doing. Anyway, it's a way of making money, but very interesting. So how are we doing that? When you take the meat, you have to make sure there is no blood inside. Why? Again, we're going to the prohibition of eating blood, because this is like where the life of the animal is, and you need to take it out. That's, by the way, according to some opinions, the reason why we're doing shchita. Because the way of slaughtering the animal, this is not necessarily the fastest or the easiest way, I don't know, but that's for sure the best way to take the majority of the blood out in the fastest way. Because if you just shoot the animal, let's say, or any other way of killing the animal, the blood stays inside. When you did shchita, the majority of the blood will come out very fast. And that's what we want. So when you already have the meat, now you do the melicha part, and you put salt from both sides. Some of the pieces of parts of the meat, we cannot do melicha, like liver, for example. How are you gonna do melicha for the liver? It's all blood, right? So that's why liver, the only way to eat it is only on the grill. If someone using liver and cooking it, important for the chef to know, it's not kosher. The only way to do it, you need to cut and you put it on the grill, right? Not just broil on the oven, because over there the blood stays inside. But when you put it on the grill and the blood can leak, if you put it in the oven, the way to do it is put it on a net or something, on a pan that actually for broil, and then all the liquid will go down, right? But then maybe you're cooking it and the steam will go back to the meat. The best way, and basically the only way to make liver, it's only on the grill. So right now,
So why they no longer sell kosher liver that's not already pre-grilled?
not necessarily. You can go to Saracen, you can find liver that is raw, and tell you the days, right? Because if it's less than there is a way. If it's more than 3 days, can be a problem, because already the blood is inside, right?
That's what the majority of kosher liver is only sold too much stressful requirement after it's good.
That's true. Most of the places they will sell you a liver that it's already being exactly there on the grill or broil, right? So basically, now we have the part, and again we're talking about the way of making it kosher. We have the part of taking the meat and putting the salt, right? Beautiful. That's interesting. It's a tricky question that you can ask some people. How come you take something kosher, something not kosher, right? You mix them together, then you separate them. Whatever was kosher is not kosher anymore, and whatever was non-kosher now becomes kosher. Again, you have two things, kosher, not kosher. You mix them and you separate them. Whatever was kosher becomes not kosher, and whatever was not kosher becomes kosher. That's the meat and the salt. Salt is kosher. Meat before you salting it, it's not kosher. When you mix them and then you separate, you remove the salt, now the meat becomes kosher and the salt becomes non-kosher because it's with the blood, right? So it's a tricky question. You can ask people. I can tell you that I did the test for in the Rabbanut for learning the laws of kashrut, and there was literally rabbis over there. They got this question. They didn't know the answer because it's a tricky question, right? How are you gonna find? But anyway, very interesting. So after the melicha, you separate now, and you have kosher piece of meat. Beautiful. So we already in the process number 4. We choose the kosher animal. We did the proper shchita. We make sure it's not taref or treif, right? That it's perfect. And we did the proper melicha. We salted. Now what? Now we have piece of meat ready to use, right? Very important 3 things. Number 1, who is the one who's doing that? Again, as we mentioned, because of the concept of intermarriage, the Torah prevent us from eating food that was cooked by a non-Jew. That's why all the restaurant you'll go, the mashgiach, he will be the one to turning on the oven, to turn on the light, the fire. According to the Sephardim, it's even more strict. The mashgiach actually needs to be the one that putting the meat on the grill, right? So that's why basically all the kosher restaurant in Miami can be an issue for Sephardic people, just so you know. I'm eating because we're going out and we have the mitzvah to go out and to enjoy, especially when you go with your wife, shalom bayit, and everything is amazing. But according to Sephardim, you need to ask the mashgiach to put the food on the fire for you, right? That's why I like to go to specific restaurants over here that we live in Surfside. I know all the owners. By the way, all of them are Sephardic. They know the halacha, so you just tell them, they know what to do. Next time, if you go to the mashgiach, it's very important. For Ashkenaz, you don't need it. As long as the mashgiach turn on the oven, right, you're good to go. It's called bishul yehudi, right? So, condition number 1, you already have the kosher meat. Who is cooking it for you? Make sure someone either put it on the fire or at least turn on the fire for you. There is the mashgiach if you go outside, or if you eat with friends, there is a Jewish guy who's doing it. Number 1. Number 2, where are you cooking it, right? If you're using non-kosher pot, or using a non-kosher kitchen, or you're using, you're mixing it with something else, all of those things, it's gonna be a problem, right? So it's not just who is doing it for you, it's where. If the oven is not kosher, let's say you're moving, you just rented an apartment, or you bought it, and the oven over there is not kosher. That's gonna be a problem to use it, right? You have to kosherize it, right? Many people, Baruch Hashem, they're moving, the first thing they do, kosherizing the kitchen. Beautiful, Baruch Hashem. So that's number 2, right? Not just who is cooking it for you, where are you cooking it? Number 3, right? When you are the one who's cooking it for yourself, right? Perfect, beautiful, Jewish, bishul yehudi. Number 1. Number 2, you cook it in the proper place that is kosher, right? A new oven. Now, it's also how you're going to eat it. Because even if it's kosher meat, you're not allowed to eat it with cheese, right? Or what happened if you have a kosher meat and that meat now got mixed with non-kosher meat? That can be a problem. So there is a chot ha'aravot if it got mixed, and here if there is 1 in 60, sometimes 1 in 100, right? Or let's say it's on Pesach, that meat, right? So let's think about it. Let me give you an example. You choose the kosher animal, check. Shchita, check. It's not taref, check. Right? You did the melicha with the salt, check. You cooking it in a kosher kitchen with kosher utensils, check. A Jewish cooking it or turn it on the oven, check. You eating only the meat, right? Without cheese, check. But maybe you have chametz, you cook it with something that is chametz and it's on Pesach. You allowed to eat it? Not allowed, right? Problem. You know what? You eat it on Pesach, but it has nothing to do with chametz. Didn't touch a bread at all, right? But you leave it on the table. Let's say you work in WeWork, all right? So there is an area that everyone is eating. You're putting the meat on the table and you go to wash your hands because you want to eat meat with bread. You're going back to the plate and then you said like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe someone changed the meat, right? Now what? You're allowed to eat the meat on your plate. It's called basar shenitale min ha'ain, a meat that no one was watching and maybe someone changed it. It was actually a guy that was flying from New York to Israel. It's a true story. And he's sitting over there and he got his kosher meal, right? That he ordered. So he's going to wash his hands before the meal. He's coming back and he's like, oh, I opened that and there was meat inside. And now, I don't know, maybe someone, right? It's not allowed to eat it. Basar shenitale min ha'ain. It's a meat that no one watched. So he's like, he's taking the bread, eating the bread, doesn't touch the meat. So the guy next to him is like, why are you not eating? He says, whatever, I don't want to eat. So no, why are you not eating, right? He says, we have a law, in Judaism, that if you have a meal with meat and you weren't like watching and looking, then no one touched it. So you're not allowed to eat it. That's why I'm not eating, because I went to wash and I didn't realize. So he's like, wow. That's the laws by the Jewish people. He says like, yeah. He says, I will be honest with you. All my life I wanted to try kosher meat. When you went, I actually took a piece and I put my own piece in your plate to eat it. So actually the meat that you see in your plate is non-kosher. And he was like, hallelujah. Thank you for following the rules, right? So that was actually interesting when I heard it, because all the time I was like, come on, right? I'm telling you that it's happened a lot. People don't realize, not in a bad intention. People want to try, especially when you work in a big company, there's lots of employees, or when we work, or you're one of those, people try the food, people are being friendly, right? So think about it. Even if you choose the kosher animal, and you did the proper shchita, and it's not taref, and you did melicha, and the Jewish cook it, and it's kosher utensils, and you didn't mix it with cheese, and it's not a problem of chametz on Pesach, and you just left it on the table for 2 minutes, boom, you're not allowed to eat it. You understand? So kosher, you see how many steps we have till you actually make kosher, that it's kosher piece of meat. There's another thing that have to be good, You can't just eat any meat. After all of those things, make sure you have the proper chef making for you the meat. If after all of this process and step, you're just eating something that is not yummy, that's not bueno. But this has nothing to do with kosher laws, right? Very, very important. So that's when we're talking about, right, the kosher eating only with the land animals. You see how many process, right? The thing is that the Torah is telling us the rules of how to doing. What about birds? What's a proper way to find if a bird is kosher or not? So actually the Torah doesn't tell us. Huh? The all kosher? What's the difference between country that is democracy and country that is there is a dictator? I think we discussed one time about it. What's the difference? When you live in a country that there is a dictator over there, I don't know, in North Korea, whatever he didn't told you that you're allowed to do, you're not allowed. Not allowed. If you live in America in democracy, whatever they didn't tell you that you're not allowed to do, you're allowed. Right? That's the way. So the Torah, is democracy or not? Whatever the Torah is telling you that you're allowed to do. So the rest of the things, how it works, if the Torah is telling you you're not allowed, the rest of the things you allowed, or only whatever the Torah tells you that you allowed, then the rest of the things you're not allowed. That's very important, right? I think the Torah is democracy. Or maybe not. Let's see. So with birds, actually, the Torah doesn't say what's the signs to eat kosher bird or not, right? So the Torah giving us list of 20 different birds that are not kosher, right? 20. The rest of the birds, you know how many we have? Any of you learn? Yeah, you learn. You went to school. Thank you. Start to watch National Geographic and stop with the Netflix and chill, you know? Something more productive. So basically, there's lots of thousands, right? Only 20 are non-kosher. The thing is that since we got the Torah on Mount Sinai, it's been 3,000 years with lots of nonsense in between. And we went to exiles many times. And we split. Someone went to Europe, someone went to Africa, some of us to different places. So we don't know today exactly those 20 birds, what exactly they are, because it's written in Hebrew, in a book that we got 3,000 years ago, right? That's creating some of a little bit of an issue, and that's why the rabbis in the Torah giving us some laws, they're telling us only those kind of birds are kosher. Number one, she'enot dores ve'ochel. It means birds, they're not eating animals. That's like, I'm not talking about worms, but some of the birds are actually, it's called dores. It means
Scavengers.
predators. Yeah, basically predators. They're eating other whatever animals or birds or different kind of thing. So this is like a sign for us that is not, and this is actually connected to the reason that we're not supposed to eat animals with bad behavior, right? Because we don't want to be like, you know. I actually see now when I went to the ocean to fish, you see some kind of birds that actually, right, taking fish from the ocean. That's one thing. Another thing is mesorah. Whatever we have tradition, that's what we eat, right? Let me ask you a question. The turkey you're eating on Thanksgiving, you fulfill the mitzvah of the holiday of Thanksgiving to sit around the table and eating a turkey. I was like, Baruch Hashem, by us, every Friday night it's a Thanksgiving, right? We sit with the family, we eat a lot, right? We don't do anything else. Beautiful. So, the turkey, that's kosher or not kosher?
Depends on who you ask.
That's how it's cooked.
Is it kosher on Thanksgiving?
Oh, some says it's kosher during the year. You're not allowed to Thanksgiving. Don't be American. It's a worshiping idols. It's not. It's just a regular holiday. This is different discussion. I'm with you. That some people says it's not kosher on Thanksgiving, right? Any other day, pick any other day, you can eat it. Very nice. So didn't eat last. Okay, because no one invited you. That's not. Don't be like I don't eat. So that's one thing. But you mentioned that for some people it's kosher, for some people it's not. So actually, Turkey, there was not in Israel or Europe, right? So many people, they grew up years in different countries. They don't eat that kind of big chicken, right? I know that usually Mr. President don't eat it. That's why they send it for free every Thanksgiving. I don't know if you know the custom. Yeah, but man, you know this minhag? So besides of the mitzvah of eating, there is another minhag of the Admor. Admor is usually the rabbi of the congregation. So the main rabbi of America is Mr. President. His minhag is to release, send for free one of the turkey, right? You ever watched that in the White House? So maybe follow the opinion that they're not supposed to eat. The thing is that for many years we didn't have the mesorah, the tradition of eating that. That's why, according many people, turkey is not kosher. Not because it's not kosher, because we follow the opinion that only birds that you had mesorah, that you have tradition, this is what you eat. If you don't have tradition, you don't eat it. This is according to Ashkenazim. What about Sephardim? So here, right, we're giving back, because before I told you that you have to put the food on the fire for the Sephardim, right? So we need to have some balance. So now we're gonna be lenient. For the Sephardim, you don't need tradition. If it's kosher, put it on your plate, right? So that's why all the birds, if you look at it and it's kosher, you can eat it. That's it. Very nice. There is another thing that is not land animals or birds and is fish, right? Told you I went to fish today, only in honor of the class. That's the only reason. I don't do things for fun, just for Hashem, right? Believe me, at least. So obviously on the fish, there is two things that we need to have to make it kosher. You know what's the sign? Fins and scales. What happens if you see only scales? It's kosher or not? Who say kosher? Not if you see only scales, it's not kosher. Koyach. According to Gemara, you're not gonna find fish with scales who doesn't have fins. That's according to Gemara. And by the way, till today, there is no fish, right, who have scales and no fins. And that's the proof the Torah is from heaven. Because no one can write a book 3,000 years ago and tell you that you never find a fish with scales, right, and no fins. And that's one of the biggest proof that whoever wrote the Torah is someone who knows all the fish in the whole world, right? Because till today they didn't discover 90% of the deep ocean, right? So how come someone can prove it to you? Only someone who created it. That's beautiful. That's actually proof. It's connected to the first class that we had. That it's a proof from the Torah that we got it from heaven and not someone who wrote it over here, because there's no other way to prove something like that. But you're definitely right, and we need two signs for a kosher fish: fins and scales. But if you find fish with scales, it's kosher. Very important, not any scales. There have to be scales that when you remove it, it doesn't ruin the skin of the fish. If it's ruining the skins of the fish, like some of sharks or stuff like that, it's not kosher. The scales needs to be separate from the skin, that you can just cut it, but the skin will be perfect, right? Like you see it with salmon. If you buy salmon for Shabbat, for the Moroccan fish, right? Usually the scales actually on top of it. You can cut it and still keep the skin. Why you want to keep the skin? Ask the chef. Some people, they fried it only from the bottom. They want to keep the skin, right? That's the reason for that. Don't do it. I don't like it personally. But anyway, some people are doing that. Never had a good one. You never offered me a good one, all right? So maybe, so basically, yes.
Why do some people say scales and gills?
Ask them. So those are the two things that we have. Now it's they're very important to know that by land animals and birds, we have the obligation to do what? Shchita, right? What about fish? Do we need to shach the fish in a way? Why? So basically, we mentioned that maybe the proper, the reason for shchita is to take all the blood out, right? Not just so the animal is not gonna suffer. But fish doesn't have blood, the fish that we eat, a kosher one, right? So maybe that's why we don't need to do shchita, right? You see how it's actually connected to each other. So, but you still need to kill the fish. You still need to kill the fish. Why? Because there's another thing that says, Lo tochlu ever min achai, not allowed to eat a piece of a live animal, right? So therefore, even if you have fish that you don't need to do shchita proper, like to slaughter them in a way, you can just take it and cut it the way that you want. Still, you have to kill it first. And I'm telling you, some people, they eat it alive, right? People in France, you know, they just take it. Actually, I had a meeting with someone, Chinese was actually, yeah. And he told me that he went to a restaurant here in Miami, because we're talking about, you know, different kinds of food. And he says that they have a different, like a soup with pieces. I don't know what's the name of this soup, but anyway, they're eating a soup, and when you eat it, you get 3 plates. The plate, obviously, of like the bowl of the soup, and then you have like a cold pieces of tofu, and like the tofu, the white ones, right? And then you have like a live fish, like 10 of them, small ones, right? What they do, they put those 2 plates on top, like inside the soup, and it's very hot. So the fish is going inside to the cold piece of the tofu, and then the person is eating that just like that. So it's a live fish. You're eating live fish in the soup. I don't know what's the name of this soup. Very interesting. wanted to see it at least. So you get it, like how they doing. It's a whole combination. You know, the cold this, the that, whatever. So that's, even if it's kosher fish, but you're not allowed to have this soup. So what you can do, you can kill first the fish and then eat it. So there's no problem, never try it, right? But anyway, so that's the thing, that even though you need to do shchita, you still not allowed to eat it like that, right? But it's very important that any way you want to eat the fish, you're allowed to eat the fish. There's no specific way. You don't need to salt it, you don't need anything. You can eat it live, you can cook it. The way that you want, that's, you're allowed to do it, right? There is another thing with animals that we're talking about kosher. That we were talking about land animals, we're talking about birds, fish. What about insects? What about locusts, right? So we know that you're not allowed to eat any kinds of
Insects.
you're allowed to eat cockroach? Not allowed? Just so you know, we're talking about being healthy. It's very healthy. It's good for the environment. Lots of protein, no fat. Why are you making faces? Why are you making faces? It's cheap. All the reasons to eat, it's good. Actually crunchy, some people like, especially when it's fried, right? Crunchy, you can make it with some spices, but it's, just so you know, check it out. It's very cheap, it's good for the environment, much more than animals. There is endless of them, right? Some says that they're very yummy. And it's very healthy for you, just so you know. Not only that, they're not transferred like virus or bacteria. So not just that it's healthy, it's, some people eat it. Anyway, the thing is like that. We're not allowed to eat cockroach, but we're allowed to eat something that is very similar to cockroach. Huh? Not crickets now. They're making such an annoying, huh? Grasshoppers and locusts. 4 kinds of them. Chagav, chargol, arbe, we're allowed to eat them, right? Yes, you're allowed to eat locusts. I can tell you there is actually a restaurant in Yerushalayim. You can go there, Eucalyptus, in City of David, next to the Kotel. You can eat a locust burger. Yes, it's good and it's kosher. Yemenite people, till today they eat it. That's the only food they have, you know. You ever met Yemenite people? They have the same food, but they call it different names. They're taking like wheat flour with oil, they put it on the plate, they call it malawach, right? Then they make it the round, they call it lahuch, they cut it fatut, they put it in to boil jahnun, but it's the same thing. Just different, they make it like round, ziva, same thing anyway. So they actually eating that. So this is the only kosher insect that we are allowed to eat, right? But this is, we discuss only about animals. What about other things, right? Kosher, it's not just animals. What about vegetables and fruits? Just so you know, huh?
I thought all vegetables were kosher.
Depends. If you didn't check them from the box, right, and you take vegetable, first you need to say shehakol niya bidvaro for the, the worms and the insect that you eat. It's very dirty. You have to wash 3 times, triple wash. You need to check all the vegetables and the fruits. There can be kosher, but if you checked when there is no bugs, right, you have to check. That's number 1.
What about the lettuce you buy in bags that says,
Triple wash.
yeah,
Usually it's okay. I can tell you that some people, they're more strict, that says even that you need to check. I can tell you that even that sometimes you can find, right, different bags. So it's very important. Everyone says, oh, fruit and vegetables are kosher. Wait, you need to check them from bags, number 1. Second, if it's in Israel, you need to make sure Trumot, Maasot, there's lots of laws that apply in Israel, that if it's from the year of Shemitah, the year of Jubilee, the 7th year. So even if it's fruits and vegetables, you have to make sure that if it's from Israel, you give the portion of Terumah. There's not on the year of Shavuot. You need to make sure that no one was growing them on Shabbat. What happens if you have an apple that someone grows on Shabbat? What happens if this apple is in the first 3 years of the tree? It's called Orla. You're not allowed, right? So even fruits and vegetables, there's lots of laws of kashrut, and obviously you need to check from back. And if you cook it, again, you need to make sure that we say it's cooking it in a proper way. As the Jewish guy that is cooking it for you, you're using the kosher utensils for that, you're eating it with kosher things. So even fruit and vegetables are very important, right? Even bread, you eat bread. Bread is kosher or not? Just bread. Again, depends. Depends. There's lots of things. You need to check that from bags, right? The flour, the wheat flour. And when you're going to bake it, it's very important first to do what? Afrashat challah. Afrashat challah is a mitzvah for men and women. Lots of women doing it, but it's for everyone. You have to do it. You cannot eat bread that you didn't took afrashat challah. Depends of kind of the measurement and how much, right? It's very, very important. And obviously, the oven that you bake it. And the person that bake it for you. And if you bake it with fat that is not kosher, it's not kosher. So you see that when we're talking about kosher, we need to have the kosher animals that I went over with you, all of the different steps and process of how the animal can be kosher. If it's land animals, if it's birds, if it's fish, etc. And even fruits and vegetables, there is lots of things about it, right? Where did you brought it? What was the process? And if you're cooking it and you check it from back. So people says, oh, I'm going to a restaurant, I'm vegetarian, or I'm eating only sushi. You know how many problems you can have in a sushi? First, you can have seafood. Second, it's cooked rice. You don't know if they cook it in the same pot that yesterday they cook the shrimps or whatever, the lobster. You don't know, right? Or they're using knife that they cut something else, right? Or they didn't check the vegetables inside. There's so many things that it's important to know that even sushi or salad, just a salad, it's not kosher if you're eating in a non-kosher place. Very, very important, right? So now, after we understand all of those things, the meaning of kosher, what exactly it means kosher, what's of all of those kind of kosher things, how you bring it to your life, right? You actually says, okay, how can I start like adding kosher to my diet? So for that, very important to do three things. Number one, everything you buy outside, make sure it's kosher. You go to the grocery store, check. Are you okay? Trying and cut, right? This kind, ask, take a picture, Google it, send to your friends, send to the rabbi. Start to be aware of what kind of products you buy. That's number one. Number two, right? Number two, restaurant. If you go to a restaurant, go to a kosher restaurant. That's the easiest thing, right? So if you buy grocery, check what you're buying. If you go to a restaurant, go to kosher restaurant. That's it. That's the first two things. Then you have in your house. In your house, you also need to kosher your kitchen. That's very important. How to kosher your utensils, your stuff. There is a way to do it. We're not going to open this topic right now, but there is a way to make sure that your oven is kosher, utensils, it's kosher. It's very, very important, right? How to do it. Let's touch a little bit the concept of meat and milk, because it's applied to everyone, it's in your house, and it's part of actually starting to change a little bit in your house. So even if you had kosher meat and you have kosher cheese, you're not allowed to mix it together. The Torah is telling us, lo tevashel gedi b'chalev. You're not allowed to cook meat, gedi, basically a concept of any meat, with cheese. The Torah mentioned that 3 times. You're not allowed to cook it together, not allowed to eat it together, and not to have any benefit from that. So basically, not allowed to sell cheeseburger to a non-Jewish person, even though you don't eat it, but you have benefits from that. You're making money. Not allowed. So that's in your house. You need to make sure that you have different utensils, knife, plate, pots, pan that you use, separate for meat and for cheese. Even when you wash them in your sink, don't wash them together, because you can use boiling water, and that can cook basically leftovers of the place that you have. So that, not even the same sponge, exactly. So basically, you see from here that after we're going all over those kind of kosher, even if everything is kosher by your house, but still not mixing meat and milk is so important that you should have everything separate in the house, right? And you cannot use the same pot, and there is lots of laws and halachot, lots of details that also can be separate between Ashkenazim and Sephardim of how to use and the different details of it. For example, let me give you just one example. So you put meat on a pan, right? You're doing steak, and after you finish with that, you're cleaning that. Your roommate now wants to have eggs. So he's taking the same pan that you use now for meat. 5 minutes later, it's clean, right? And he's putting eggs. Now, obviously, we're not allowed to put cheese inside this pan because why? This pan, I just use it for meat. Not allowed. But let's say he's putting the eggs on the plate and now he wants to put cheese on top of the egg. Allowed or not allowed?
Is the plates enough for the
Again, the pan was with steak 5 minutes ago, right? The eggs or parv or just eggs, right? Just eggs. Now the eggs on a plate that is not milchik or fleischik. It's just a plate, whatever. So all of you says you're not allowed to put cheese on top of the egg. So let me tell you something. You allowed. Chidush. For the Sephardim, you allowed in first place, right? You allowed to take cheese, to put it on the egg, and you say, Baruch she'asani Sephardi. That's the bracha. Thank you, Hashem, I'm allowed. For the Ashkenaz, you're not allowed to put it. But what happened if by mistake, not intentionally, right, you purposely forgot the halacha, and you put cheese? Now, you allowed to eat it or not allowed to eat it? You allowed to eat it. So even for Ashkenaz, don't do it. But if you did it, right, assuming you never heard this halacha, you're allowed to, it's called b'di'avad, after the fact, right? So for example, this halacha, right, that's why it's important to learn the details. We're not going to go over all the halachot now of meat and milk. That's B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to have a specific class only about meat and milk. But just for you to know, there is so many details that even in your house can be kosher or not kosher. So again, that's something that can be for Sephardim kosher, for Ashkenaz not kosher, right? Very interesting. Now, when we're talking about utensils, some of the things can be good for us and not. I will give you again only one example. So let's say you're taking a tray that is made of glass, right? Porcelain, whatever, made of glass. So that glass, you use it for meat, right? You literally put meat. You clean it. 5 minutes later, you wanna use it for cheese, lasagna with cheese in the oven. You allowed or not allowed? Again, you have a tray made of glass, right? Pyrex, yeah. You can do it or not? Yes, you got the point. You got it. We're gonna stick to it till the rest, of all the classes of kashrut. Sephardic, yes. Ashkenaz, no. Remember. So basically, in this case, Ashkenaz hold that glass is like ceramic, and ceramic there is no way to kosherize. So not only that you're not allowed to use this tray, Pyrex, that you use it for meat, to use it cheese, you can't even kosherize it ever. It's gonna be meat forever. That's it. For Sephardic, we say, come on. You look, you see something? You see something? No, clear, like crystal, right? Clean it and use it. So I don't know why Ashkenaz, maybe they don't clean so good like Sephardic, I don't know. But basically, that's very interesting. For Sephardic, you allowed, for Ashkenaz, you're not allowed, right? Again, it's only one example. B'ezrat Hashem, if we're gonna learn another class how to kosherize your kitchen, we'll know. So, even in your house, after you make sure all the products and the grocery, whatever you buy is kosher, you need to make sure that your house is kosher. So basically, let's go just to summarize what we learned today that is very, very important. First, we discussed about the meaning of kosher, why the Torah, why Hashem is telling us there is direct influence of everything that we eat on our neshama, on our body, on our soul. Everything is so important. Pick the right thing. That's very, very important. Literally change ourselves. We can elevate our surrounding environment. It can make an impact on our behavior. Very important. Second thing, we learn how kosher things are relevant to our life because it puts you on structure. It helps you to find the right society, the right friends to be with. It's actually guiding you how to live your life. It puts you in control. Very, very important. Then we went over all the kosher things. There is kosher animals, right? Of land animals, fish, insect, birds, very important. We learned that even different kinds of fruits and vegetables and bread, anything needs also to be kosher. The way that you're doing that We learn that some of the things are nothing to do with kosher food, but it's who is cooking it, how they cooking it, where they cooking it, right? Then we learn about bringing it some a kind of practicality to our life. So when you go out, you make sure you buy kosher things. You go to kosher restaurant in your house. You kosherize your kitchen, and then we learn there is interesting notes that we add that even if everything is kosher in your house, still you need to make sure to separate meat and milk, right? There's another kind of kosher things that we're gonna learn in Pesach, making sure to separate chametz and not chametz. So all of those things literally put your life in a structure that everything is by the detail. So important. My blessing to all of us that will be able to keep the laws of kashrut, to elevate ourselves, and to always to be in an amazing place with control in every and any aspect and detail of our life. Thank you, everyone.